Hey guys, so today I'm happy to announce that my custom engine project has been completed for my 2006 Dodge Charger RT Daytona. As you probably know by now, we decided to put a 6.5 liter naturally aspirated stroker motor into this older body style vehicle. The engine was created by my friends at Rolling Thunders and More Power Performance. The owner Ned owns both companies and they work in tandem. Rolling Thunders does the engine development and Tony at More Power Performance does more of the mechanical work. I've been enjoying the car for a few weeks now and was able to get some footage before the winter hit and make this video. Throughout the whole process, Ned and the Rolling Thunders team have been great with allowing me to film, take notes, learn, and enjoy the experience, and I've thought about how I wanted to transform that into content to show everything. So I've decided to go with a type of mini-series of episodes. I didn't want to cram in everything in one video, and I wanted to spend the proper amount of time going over all the different aspects of the car and the build process. So for today, it will be a general showcase of something of everything. The visual of the car and what's been done there, some engine shots and build shots, some revs, pulls and burnouts, and more. Most of you haven't seen the car for some time, so I feel this is a good way to get back into it, introduce the car again, and then slowly work my way into showing off this project. Future episodes will then include the full build specs, the build process, the custom exhaust, a review of the car, my experiences, going to the dyno and seeing what kind of numbers we can get with this thing, going to the track, and anything else I can think of. You can find the video outline on screen now, and let's get into it. First, a quick backstory of how this whole project started. Over 2 years ago now, in July of 2019, I had just finished university, and my YouTube channel was growing, so I decided to pull the trigger and buy a Hemi V8. I had always wanted a V8, and I love the 2006 to 2010 Charger body styles, but I couldn't find any decent SRT8s in my area, so I settled for a bone stock 2006 Dodge Charger RT Daytona with the 5.7 liter Hemi V8 in Tour Red. It wasn't anything crazy, but it was my first V8 and I loved it, and it felt special because it was technically limited edition. For 2006 they made only 10,000 Daytonas for the US, but just 691 for Canada. And for Tour Red there are only 2,000 in the US and another 200 for Canada, and I have number 165 of the Canadian version. I also love the Tour Red body color, and it matched my 2009 Dodge Charger SXT as well. So the car had around 93,000 miles on it when I bought it, and within a year, by the time it was at 120,000 miles, it had the dreaded valve seat drop. In September of 2020, I was driving on the highway for about 2 hours, got right off and filled up a tank of gas, went to start it, and that was it. The car kind of shook awkwardly and wouldn't start. Upon taking apart the engine, it was confirmed that the passenger side cylinder 6 intake valve had dropped or fallen out of the head, and subsequently caused some damage to the pistons, cylinder heads, and the block as well. This was a common problem on the early third generation Hemis, especially from 2006 to 2008. That issue is a whole other topic of discussion, so you can check out my other videos on that for more information in the top right corner, but you can see some of the shrapnel and damage that was done to the cylinder heads here. So again, the engine was built and assembled by Ned and the team at Rolling Thunders, and all the other work on the car was done by Tony at More Power Performance. One major reason this build took so long was that the plans were changed 3 different times. Originally it was just going to be a rebuild with headers, then it was going to be a custom-built 346 cubic inch Hemi, kind of a combination of a 5.7 with some 6.1 parts. We thought about it though, and I figured this was a chance to document a really cool build. I had the opportunity to do something more, and I also wanted to make some fun content out of this. I've always wanted to build up a motor, and this was the time to do something cool. So that ended up being the third and final plan, a custom-built 6.5 liter naturally aspirated stroker motor. So now let's talk about the car. Before we get into the motor, here's the car in its current state. In their stock form, the Daytonas had a blacked out grille up front and a honeycomb insert behind it, with an RT badge in the front grille and a red Heritage RT badge on the deck lid that replaces the standard silver RT badge. These Daytonas also had a lot of decals, and on this car they're all stock, matte black from the factory. The hood has a black Hemi decal, while the rear has quarter panel striping that reads Daytona on both sides, and there's a blackout vinyl between the taillights on the deck lid. A spoiler is also added to the back, again covered in black vinyl. Daytonas also have a Mopar OEM chin spoiler under the front bumper, which I've painted in gloss black. Aside from those stock pieces, I've also added lots of customizations to make the car my own and improve on the visual appearance. The first thing needed was to get rid of that fishbowl effect, so I decided on 5% tint all the way around, including the rear windshield. The next thing you always notice is the large splitter. That's from Ventus Auto Works. placed under the regular chin splitter for an added effect. The headlights and fog lights are wrapped in tinted vinyl, with gloss black wrap in the fog light area. And the headlight bulbs are RGB, so they can switch between colors and white as well. The corner pieces of the headlights are also covered in Reflective Concepts overlay, and that is meant to match my Tour Red paint. Along the rocker panels, I have matching side skirts from Ventus AutoWorks as well. Moving to the rear, I've added red overlay on the Charger writing, as well as a Daytona third brake light. The taillights are from my 2009 Dodge Charger, and those were spray tinted black. A Mopar OEM SRT diffuser was added between the massive 5-inch black chrome Rhino exhaust tips. More on the exhaust later. Looking up to the roof, I wrapped that in gloss black, really helping this Charger look more aggressive and stand out from the crowd. The final piece was a beautiful Daytona sunroof decal, in red as well, from Luxe Auto Concepts. Now as for the wheels and tires, they are upgraded from stock of course. I chose gloss black Hellcat replicas, 20 by 9 inch up front and 20 by 11 inch in the rear for a staggered look. Tires are a Continental Extreme Contact Sport, 275/40 ZR20 in the front, and wider 315/35 ZR20 in the rears. The rear fenders also had to be rolled, otherwise it kept cutting the outer edge of the sidewall when going over pretty much any bumps on the road. Some other little mods I've done here include spiked lug nuts, painted red brake calipers, and PowerStop Z23 pads and slotted and drilled rotors. Now we can move on to the exciting part, the motor. Again, I'm not going into too many crazy details as that will all come in another Daytona episode where we just look at all of the build specs. But this is a 6.5 liter stroker motor, naturally aspirated, built off of my stock 5.7 liter Hemi V8 block. That's just about the only thing that was kept from the original motor. Paired with the engine is the stock NAG1 5-speed W5A 580 transmission with auto stick where you can shift the gears yourself, and there's an upgraded 3200 stall speed torque converter. Eagle cylinder heads are used from a newer 5.7 Hemi with 208-inch intake valves and 1.6-inch exhaust valves. The heads and block have been machined, and the heads were modified with custom porting done by Ned at Rolling Thunders. The internals include forged pistons, forged connecting rods, and a forged steel stroker crank with a 4.05-inch crank stroke. A custom Hemi camshaft from Comp Cams was also used. Now for the intake manifold and throttle body, these parts were taken from a 6.4 liter Hemi, so that has the front feed 45-degree side-mounted 80mm throttle body and the active runner feature that electronically varies the intake manifold's runner length, short or long, for optimal horsepower and torque. And both the intake manifold and throttle body were ported as well. For the cold air intake, I chose to go with a Mopar Performance long ram intake. This was actually a factory part for the 2006 to 2010 5.7 liter and 6.1 liter motors, so it did have to be modified to fit on the 6.4 throttle body. The rear differential wasn't touched either, so the ratio is 2.82 on the stock Daytona, but that will absolutely be upgraded next summer. The cooling system, including the radiator and hoses, were also beefed up to account for the new engine. For headers, we chose to go with 1 7/8-inch American racing headers with cats, and for the exhaust, it's all custom work done by More Power Performance. So there's 3-inch stainless steel piping with Flowmaster Super 10 mufflers and 5-inch black chrome Rhino exhaust tips. Exhaust is a big deal for me, so that will have a full episode dedicated to it as well. As for the horsepower numbers, what everyone asks for, the car was tuned, but the dyno used was very old, it didn't have the proper load bearing, and also was run in 3rd gear instead of 4th gear, which is the 1-to-1 ratio on these cars. It was more of just tuning the car and making sure it ran, so I could finally drive it and play around with it. However, the best pulls did show 487 horsepower and 512 pound-feet of torque to the wheels, so if I account for a 20% drivetrain loss, that would be 609 horsepower and 640 pound-feet of torque to the crank. So technically on this dyno, that's the peak power that it made, but I will take that with a grain of salt for now, and I want to go to a professional dyno one day soon when the weather is nicer to get proper numbers and dyno sheets and do a whole video showing you guys that process. There are still some various non-engine related upgrades to do in the future, but this was enough for now to have fun with the car and see what it can do. The only stock parts left that I can think of would be the transmission, the 5.7 block of course, and the differential. I also haven't touched the suspension yet, and the stock brake calipers are unchanged. Those are pretty lackluster and they don't stop the car now very well at all, as they just have dual piston front and single piston rear calipers, so a Brembo upgrade might be in order next summer. Also, the transmission could prove to be a weak link down the road, as the NAG one is supposed to be rated for 428 pound-feet of torque to the wheels, which would be around 535 to the crank, and I'm pushing over that for sure at this time. I will say that there are plenty of 600 plus horsepower builds that have had no issues with it, so hopefully it'll be fine for quite some time. Now, to quickly explain my goals of the build and why I chose to do this, there are two reasons. The first is that I want a custom-built motor that no one else has. I've never seen a 6.5-liter stroker done in this 2006 to 2010 body style, and with all the parts seamlessly put together by Rolling Thunders and More Power Performance, this is just a one-off engine that nobody else has. The car turns heads wherever I go because people just don't expect it. Most people don't build custom engines but are instead manufacturers, as Ned likes to say. They simply buy parts from others and assemble them together to make an engine, but that's not the most efficient way. With this project, everything is custom and working together in sync. The second goal is to get this car to run as fast, if not faster, than the Dodge Challenger RT Scat Pack 1320, or even possibly into Hellcat territory, for far less money than just buying one of those vehicles. The 1320 is rated for a quarter mile of 11.7 seconds at 115 miles per hour. So how cool would it be to build something that can match these cars that are actually built for drag racing from the factory with my old body style 2006 Daytona? And third, of course, is that this is just a once-in-a-lifetime experience where I can see the engine come together right in front of me and experience all these new things while learning more and more every step of the way, meeting new people, and documenting it all for you guys on YouTube. So now I'll leave you with a few other polls and revs. So that's the end of this video, guys. Again, sorry it took so long, but I'm just overjoyed to have the car back and drive it before the winter fully sets in here in Canada. I've never driven anything quite like it, and the power is just addictive and amazing to experience on a near daily basis. Hopefully you enjoyed this opening video on my project, and make sure to follow along and stay tuned for so much more content on the 6.5-liter Hemi going forward in every detail and aspect that you can think of. One final thing, thanks to all of you who subscribe to the channel, like or comment, and even just watch my videos. Without all of you supporting me, none of this would have ever been possible, and I am so grateful to always have this wonderful community of Mopar people who got my back. So thanks again to all of you. As always, make sure to like and subscribe for a lot more Mopar content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.